welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Man, we're having such a good time hitting the churches. This year's been a wonderful year. I believe we're in 47 churches out of the 52 weeks. It's exciting to see people hungry for the coming of the Lord. And with the End of Days Update, we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war. Because the second coming has so many signs. I think in our book it's like 70 some odd signs. In fact, watch next week. We're going to have a special, the book coming out with the end time teaching in a bag. And man, the book is so cool because it's got those charts from Clarence Larkin. You can glance at it and learn how flawless the end times are. So we're looking at everything that points to the return, because Paul talked about the baptism 12 times, the coming of the Lord 52 times. Interesting, when Jesus went into town, the demons started crying out, "Are you come to torment us before the time?" Don't you love that instant submission? And they knew he was on a schedule, but he was early. So if demons could know the time, obviously the church should know. So Paul said, we are not in darkness, so that day would overtake us as a thief. So we have all this information. We have verse after verse coming to pass right before our eyes. We're so blessed to be living in the very last part of the church age. We'll look back on this and go, wow, we were there just before God was manifested in the earth, Jesus of Nazareth. So let's pick up what's happened all around Israel. So much keeps happening with Russia, with Iran, with Turkey. But specifically in Israel itself, you had rockets fired from Gaza. Hamas fired them into Israel. Then they fired on Israeli jets. Israeli jets went down and blew up one of their main rocket facilities there in Gaza. Of course, the Hamas freaked out. Well, Israel didn't pick children or schools. They blew up the missile place where they're building the missiles. So much is going on with that. Then you had rockets from Lebanon coming into northern Israel. So you got missiles from the western part of Israel coming into Israel, northern part of Israel coming down on Israel. All these things are little setups for what's going to happen right before the coming of the Lord. So you're watching it play out. You had some skirmishes on the Temple Mount. You had a Palestinian try to kill a Jewish man for praying on the Temple Mount. Jacob's 20,000 sheep are ready. Came in a couple of weeks ago, ready for sacrifices. So wild, the lineage of Jacob there, and you have the red heifers that are ready there in Israel. So you have a lot of things happening that are like war, like Jesus talked about in Matthew 24, said there'll be wars and rumors of wars. I mean, in the Ukraine yesterday, how crazy. You had the Ukraine firing missiles with drones into the middle part of Russia, took out two bombers that were capable of carrying nuclear, they called them nuclear bombers, hit two different airports. They hit another airport just before we came on. So that's 3 airports in one day. So the Ukraine's going after Russian interior. So Russia retaliated by having a barrage of missiles fired into the Ukraine. It's sad to see where they hit. They hit all over the place. They weren't just going at military targets. They were going at civilian targets. So that's a pretty amazing how that's keeping going, because what's going to happen is, it was interesting that the reports in the Jerusalem Post and different outlets said the Ukraine is exposing Russia's air defense incapability, or basically their weaknesses. So you see how Putin will overreact to that. So to say, hey, we're not being really shown up. Oh, so much stuff. Steve talks about their hypersonic missile they have ready. So America came out this last week with a new B-21 bomber, first bomber like this in 30 years. It wasn't an accident they did that, so they came out with that. Then they hyped up the new, the newest nuclear sub that we have that's parked off of the Indian Ocean. So all the stuff with that, you have North Korea firing missiles literally right by Japan. And you have South Korea getting ready for that, literally sending fighter planes out there to kind of coerce them to calm down. You have Russia building a defense area there right off of the islands of Japan. So you got Russia doing things, you got South Korea doing things. You got Turkey that has not gone ahead and invaded the northern part of Syria, so they're kind of waiting on some things. But man, their verbiage this week was one thing after another, how they're telling everybody what to do. So Turkey's going to come on the scene real close. Watch them be a main player in getting things ready for the Antichrist. Pretty intriguing to see how that's all set up flawlessly like the Bible said it would be. So you have all that happening, and it's literally one thing after another, piled upon another thing. Some of it is so blatant, it's pretty wild. You have earthquakes all over the world, just an extreme explosion of them. You have 27 volcanoes right now that are actively operating. It's just amazing to see all those combined together. Along with that, I saw something just earlier today, 100 some odd things, I believe it was 94 some odd things of cattle dying, fish dying, birds dying, all over the world. 100 instances, it said, right up to almost the last week there were 94, and with this week the combination of it was 100 of weird things like that happening. So bizarro things, even about asteroids. So you see one thing after another. I'm intrigued with Iran. The verbiage that they came out with this week, and how Israel had to say, look, we're going to go for it. A report came out and said they're 6 months away from coming up with a nuke. The International Atomic Energy Agency said 6 months. It's like within weeks they could have things ready. So we're watching the setup for all this right in front of our eyes. You had Benjamin Netanyahu say that we had Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz coming basically seditious against the government. So a lot of jockeying for position there. I do like how strong Benjamin Netanyahu is. So we'll see how that all plays out. But the Bible is very clear about what's getting ready to happen. This is a setup for the Ezekiel 38 war. And you have the players literally on the field right now getting ready to have it happen. So there's event after event after event happening. And I don't even get into all the weird stuff about, you had a Catholic bishop say this week that Hillary Clinton was evil because she said, listen to what she compared pro-life people to the Taliban. So you have one little thing after another. This one was really intriguing. You have the Abraham's House of Worship ready in Abu Dhabi in the next 2 weeks. It's going to be the home of Chrislam. That's the one world religion. So that's all set up in 2 weeks. I do like that Macron met with Biden this week, and the Pope called on Macron to come down there. So you had the beast and the false prophet at the exact same time. So it's all playing out right in front of our eyes. So why do we get into this? It's not escape theology. It's a hustle theology. As we see the finish line, we run faster, not slower. So we're so blessed that we're watching the earth get ready for the entrance of the King. So we always go back to the scripture. We go through the signs every week. I know it's a lot of them, but it's pretty blatant. Israel made a nation. Jerusalem won back. Hebrew language restored, Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. Their Capitol buildings identical to the Tower of Babel. You had Russia rebuild the arch for Baal worship there in Palmyra. That's where the Tower of Babel was. You have all of this happening right in front of our eyes. So the ritual baths around the Temple Mount fill up with water, first time in 2,000 years. You had foxes show up on the Temple Mount, and you had fish show up in the Dead Sea. I like this one. This was crazy when you had the Dead Sea turn blood red where Sodom and Gomorrah is, and it happened on the Day of Atonement. So sign after radical sign after sign after sign showing us, hey, the Lord's about to come back. You have men will be lovers themselves, we have selfie sticks. So event after event, if you got into it, even in our book, we look at about 75 some odd signs, flawless, showing us how close we are to the coming of the Lord. So after that, though, you go to signals. You had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. Pretty remarkable. 4 in a row. NASA calls that a tetrad. When's the last time you had 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation. 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So signals coinciding with radical things with Israel. And then after that, you've got the blood red moons. The blood red moons. Then after that, you have the Bethlehem star. I wish we had more teaching on that, but the Bethlehem star is so flawless. You had Jupiter, king planet, Regulus, regal, king planet. And then you had Venus, men from Mars, women from Venus. You had all three of them come together at the birth of Jesus. The constellation was Virgo. Man, this last year, NBC Nightly News said we have a celestial event. Jupiter, Regulus, Venus coming together, the Bethlehem star. What was the constellation? Leo. He's the lion of the tribe of Judah. So you have things happening in the earth that are blatant in our face, showing us how close. Things happening in the heavens, blatant, showing us how close we are. So this is it. You have many more things going on, but I tell you, try to pile it all into a 10-minute talk, and it's like Jesus is about to come. What do you do? What do I do? We help our local church, help our local pastor. We get more involved. We don't fit church into our life. It is our life. Why? We have to push for the information to come out that Jesus is just about to come. I'm probably watching more weird things than ever before. People literally yielding to Lucifer with their verbiage, with their actions. I'm just telling you, we're so closer than we ever could imagine. Once you do all the math with combining Jerusalem being won back, Israel made a nation, and you look at a generation from that, you come out to exactly about 2030. Jesus went to the cross on 30 AD. 2,000 years from that's 2030. He told the Jewish boys, I'll be back after 2 days. So 2 days from 30 AD is 2030. You back away the tribulation, you're at 2023. I'm not saying the rapture's next year, but if it doesn't happen, the Lord missed a wonderful opportunity to take us home. So event after event after event, culminating in a time period called the end of days just before Jesus comes. Wow, we're there. We literally are there. Make changes to get your heart ready to see Jesus face to face. We're about to go from faith to sight. What will you say to him as you see God that let himself be beaten, raised from the dead, living in us? It's just as he was raised, we were raised with him. So forever and eternity, we'll rule and reign with him that 1,000 years. Then after that, you've got the eternity of eternities. You have a wonderful future. The rapture is not an ending, it's the beginning. Great things are ahead. We're about to see Jesus face to face. Wow. Come back next week. We'll look at what all's happened. I don't even get into all the stuff that's happening around Israel because it's so amazing. Little piece after piece after piece showing us we're there. Have a blessed Wednesday. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.